Hello dearest viewers, today's take on U.S. politics. Former Donald Trump trade advisor Peter Navarro has been convicted of contempt of Congress for not complying to a subpoena from the House Select Committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Navarro is the second ex-aide to the former president to be prosecuted for his lack of cooperation with the committee. Steve Bannon was convicted last year onto contempt counts. Bannon's case is currently on appeal. Navarro pledged to appeal based on executive privilege issues. We knew going in what the verdict was going to be. That is why this is going to the appeals court, he told reporters outside the courthouse. And we feel, look, I said from the beginning, this is going to the Supreme Court. I said from the beginning, I'm willing to go to prison to settle this issue. I'm willing to do that. Asked by sources if he's spoken with the former president or reached out for help on legal bills, Navarro called Trump a rock, but did not elaborate on any communications. President Trump has been a rock in terms of assistance. We talk when we need to talk, Navarro said. He will win the presidential race in 2024. In November, you know why? Because the people are tired of Joe Biden weaponizing courts like this and the Department of Justice. After the verdict was read, Navarro's lawyers sought a mistrial, raising concerns about any influence alleged protesters may have had. When jurors took a break outdoors Thursday afternoon, U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta did not immediately rule on the motion. The judge scheduled Navarro's sentencing for January 12, 2024. Tim Mulvey, former spokesperson for House January 6 committee, celebrated the verdict. His defiance of the committee was brazen. Like the other witnesses who attempted to stonewall the committee, he thought he was above the law. He isn't. That's a good thing for the rule of law. I imagine that those under indictment right now are getting a good reminder of that right now, Mulvey told sources in a statement. Prosecutors told the jury during closing arguments Thursday that Navarro made a choice not to comply with a February 2020 subpoena. Justice Department Attorney Elizabeth Awley said, "That government only works if people play by the rules and are held accountable if they don't. The subpoena, it is not hard to understand," she said, adding that Navarro knew what he was required to do and when he was required to do it. Navarro's attorney Stanley Woodward contested the idea that the subpoena was simple. He also said that prosecutors failed to prove that Navarro was willful in his failure to comply with the subpoena, arguing that prosecutors hadn't established that his non-compliance with the demand for testimony was not the result of a mistake or accident. Why didn't the government present evidence to you about where Dr. Navarro was or what he was doing on the day of the scheduled deposition? Woodward asked the jury. Something stinks. Prosecutor John Crabb responded, "Who cares where he was? What matters is where he wasn't." Crabb repeatedly referred to Navarro as that man while pointing to him, telling the jury at one point, "That man thinks he is above the law." The gestures elicited strong reactions from Navarro, who at times threw up his hand, shook his head, or laughed. Woodward eventually jumped up and whispered to his client, and the two stood quietly together for the remainder of the proceeding. The jury was attentive during closing arguments, watching carefully as lawyers presented their final case. Navarro stood directly across the room with his hands clasped and stared at jurors intently. After the jury was dismissed, Woodward told the judge that the defense was seeking a mistrial because they had learned the jury had taken an outdoor break shortly before rendering the verdict, and that during that break, they were around a number of January 6th related protesters' demonstrations. It's obvious the jury would have heard those protesters. Woodward said, "It's impossible for us to know what influence that would have on their verdict." Crabb challenged the idea that there were protesters in the park next to the courthouse where the jurors took their break. Woodward countered that Navarro himself had been accosted earlier in the day by a protester when he was coming through that park. Mehta said he knew that jurors had asked to take their break outside, where they were accompanied by a court security officer. but that he was not aware that protesters were in the park. He told Woodward that he was not going to rule on the mistrial request without receiving more. Briefing: Navarro's service as a Trump White House aide has generated continuing legal troubles for the former trade advisor, troubles that go beyond the criminal case. The Justice Department brought a civil lawsuit against him to obtain government records from Navarro's personal email account that were withheld from the National Archives. Upon his departure from government, he has appealed the ruling against him in that case. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more updates on US politics.